Okay, let's get started. Hari Hari. So great to see you, Azusa. It's wonderful to be here in Independence Square in this beautiful Colombo morning, and I must say it's great to be out of the office. So
Absolutely, yes.
so great to be here with you this morning, and we're having these conversations about the priorities of the country, but also how the UN is supporting them. And another aspect of your governance programming, and I think this is also relevant for many other UN partners, was this issue of rule of law reform or judicial reforms. So part of the government's uh, agreement, I guess, with the international community more broadly, as part of the, say, restructuring of its debt, the IMF, for the first time ever, carried out a governance diagnosis. It sets out a set of uh, governance reforms. It has a set of agreements through an action plan.
Yeah.
And so, why is this for you so important for the economy, for the development of Sri Lanka? Why are these judicial reforms so crucial, you think?
Yeah. Well, even before the diagnostic, we in UNDP initiated this exercise to look around pillars of support we could enhance further around governance of economy, right? If you look at the factors that have contributed to a very difficult economic crisis, there's some governance failures around the economy.
Yeah.
So we took a hard look at it at the beginning of 2023. This is how our anti-corruption portfolio started. So justice sector strengthening, judiciary strengthening, it had been part of our program even prior to the diagnostic study. And it's important, I think, from two aspects. One is that for the economy to recover, we need to attract investments. We need to have an environment that is conducive to investments, economic activities. For that, we need to have a good system of rule of law. So from that perspective, we're working a lot on commercial mediation and the mechanisms that would attract investments and economic activities.
Like the environment for doing business.
Absolutely.
Fair playing field. Everybody understands the rules in advance.
Yeah.
And the rules are applied fair.
So we work with, Bureau of Investment and so forth to also help them expedite the processing of investments and so forth. But aside from that, as the UN, which is committed to leaving no one behind, I think there is a very strong case for us to be deeply engaged in this sector. With the economic crisis which followed the COVID pandemic, we know a number of cases of sexual-based, sexual and gender-based violence has gone up. Abuse against children has gone up globally, right? Not only in Sri Lanka, but the fact that it was followed by economic hardships meant that a lot of vulnerable segments of the society suffered from unfair treatments, right? And household indebtedness really increased because families had to borrow money to bring food to the table, to keep children in school. So they're borrowing money for day-to-day consumption. And many vulnerable families, especially women-headed families, they had to resort to sexual bribery and so forth in order to survive. So we know the access to justice demands have exponentially grown. But if you look at the ability of the justice sector to dispense justice, it hasn't really caught up.
Yeah.
The number of cases that are pending, backlogged, is now over 1 million, which is significant. So how do we work with all the institutions in the sector, not just the judiciary, but from the police all the way to correctional services and all the other institutions that are engaged in between, to make sure that justice is delivered with greater speed and greater transparency. So that's been our focus. And I think through many of the projects we implement with our sister agencies like UNICEF, UNFTA, we have been really looking into the mechanisms across the justice sector chain institutions in terms of how we can deliver justice to people, most marginalized segments of the society, with greater speed.
Yeah.
So that's been our focus.
That's great. And I think what's important, of course, we think a lot about justice reform in terms of policy, of a new law, and we've been doing that. We've been advocating for major changes in laws. But what I like about what you're saying is that at the end, it's also about the administration of justice. It's about how people feel the justice system is responding to their needs. And it goes back to what you were saying about trust. Yeah? And so that's a lot of what you're saying is our focus. It's generating more trust by citizens, their justice system. So concretely, what are you doing to improve that administration of justice? I mean, what's your and if you could give us an example of of the kind of work you're doing that you feel has made the most difference on tackling this backlog, on improving access to justice.
Several things we're doing. Of course, we do work on strengthening the legal framework and the training of personnel and so forth. That will continue. But again, we are investing heavily on digitalization, not just looking at one institution, just the courts, but across the justice sector institutions by sharing case management systems. Of course, we have to looking into checks and balances and so forth. But by having a system-wide digitalized system, hopefully we can identify pain points where the delays take place, improve coordination, and I think most importantly, to trigger conversation amongst all the institutions in terms of how they could be working better together to deliver justice faster. We're also working on a justice sector snapshot, which has all the data related to service provision, resources each institution has, both financial, human resources, and administrative data. So the sector as a whole, the policymakers can see how it's performing and come up with sector-wide decisions to move forward. So that's one more on the supply side of things. But on the demand side of things, we're doing quite a lot with the people. We just launched a campaign called Know Your Niti. It was a social media campaign. I think it's everywhere. Over 1 million viewers have been reached.
With the Ministry of Justice.
Yes, and it's supported by EU with generous funding. And now we took it to the community on the ground. It was really amazing. We had buses full of women, men coming from plantation community. Some of them even, they don't have shoes. I mean, they were so excited to be there to talk to government officials, to share their challenges, and being referred to relevant institutions to find a solution. And I'm very, very grateful that all the institutions from Colombo and the subnational level came, and many lawyers, members of the regional bar, volunteer their time to give legal aid.
Right. What kind of issues would they have?
Interestingly, many related to land ownership, and of course, divorce settlement, and from the family issues, monetary issues, but mainly land. And we, also had a very good discussion with the ministry responsible for land reform, and I think the data shortage is also an issue. So of course, people need to be empowered with the knowledge of the rights they have and what support mechanisms available. But again, then supply side has to catch up. So we try to tackle both demand and supply so that people's expectations are met down the line. And that's really about building trust in institutions. I mean, when I was traveling around in different parts of the country. And some women have told me, who are the victim survivors of sexual-based violence, that they've given up. They've been waiting for justice for the last decade.
Their case has been in the system.
Yes, and they
Here.
can't afford a lawyer. They've simply given up. And they told me it's not even worth reporting. And that's not the message we want to be, to see spreading.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's got to be a genuine sense of urgency to make sure that justice is delivered for the people.
So, well, thank you, Azusa. It's really great to have the opportunity to have this chat, and I hope this is the first of many. And especially, we thought this is a good moment to do so, as we are celebrating 70 years of Sri Lanka's membership to the United Nations, but also 80 years of this great organization. And so thank you so much for being part of this conversation.
Thank you so much. I think it's also symbolic to have this conversation in front of the Independence Square, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, to maintain peace, stability, and also have hope for the future. I think the UN has been with Sri Lanka and people of Sri Lanka through difficult times and good times. And anti-corruption, the governance work we do, everything we do is very much the bedrock of the prosperous society we want to achieve in moving forward. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.